little kid with half a brain that can start reading will know that he needs the best quality TV so that he can be indoctrinated in the best possible fashion with the latest light effects and everything that you need in order to affect the mind, bypassing the cognitive functions of the brain. Interesting? New York, 9/11. And if you take Michael Jackson, May 20, 1997, and there he is dancing away at the destruction of New York with a massive cloud going up behind him, all done way before the event actually took place. Now, this is interesting stuff. So not only 9/11, by the way, that was a 1997 episode, and the event only occurred in 2001. So are there any other subliminals? Well, of course. Here you'll have the all-seeing eye, and they will use only half the face to project that image. And when they're unpacking their toys, you have all the occult symbols present in these subliminals. Now these, remember, are not airy-fairy people writing these. These are Harvard graduates with PhDs in philosophy and mathematics, and they have exceedingly great depth of knowledge of occultism because it's in all their subliminals. The Pledge of Allegiance does not end with Hail Satan. He has to write this over and over and over again. Now, just the expressions on the faces, you can see how it can affect little children, because what they see is what they do and what they live. Let's have a look at some of the introduction of these ideas and how it all began. In the early movies, Sammy Davis Jr. used to play a very important part. He also acted with all these 33 other Freemasons that were the early cowboy movie people. And he, of course, was known as a member of the Church of Satan. Apparently he switched, but it's fascinating that he also was a Knight of Malta. And here he is seen discussing very important issues, I believe, with producer of We Are the World. He was Lionel Richie. And he's discussing issues here with Donald Monin, S.J., Society of Jesus, president of Jesuit Boston College. And this, of course, became then the new musical production that was absolutely broadcast over the entire world. Because humanity has to unite in one mindset. And so let's create chaos, let's create false flags, let's create enemies so that we can herd humanity into one camp. And let's have a rainbow nation and all the colors of the rainbow represented. I'm a red Indian, I'm a Chinese person, I'm a that, and I'm a this, and we are the world, we are the people. And what is the spirit behind it, I ask myself, in this process? Now, if we continue in this modern Hollywood era, let me remind you again, it is the church's birthright to own and control all media productions. So who really controls Hollywood? It's not the Jews. There's another power that controls this entity. So we'll introduce extraterrestrialism. It becomes very prominent. And then we'll link it to messianic messages as we condition minds as to what will happen. Close encounters of a third kind. Let's bring in things which can be, well, determined either extraterrestrial or demonic intervention. And all of the great megastars, well, they don't hide where their affiliations are, as you can see. Simon Cowell's little jet ski with his nice little Masonic symbol right on the front. They're not scared. And today, everything is out in the open. If you are interested, you can go to the web and you can punch in any actor that is prominent in the world today, any singer, any group, and look at the occult connections, their Masonic connections. I had a young girl who got tickled pink and started doing this. She drove me crazy with the thousands of things she sent me. But she did a great job. Every single one is involved. And they all blatantly confess to their affiliations on their Facebook pages and on their this and on their that. I don't have time to look into all of that stuff. But if you're interested, you can verify it. I don't have to give you the details. That's not what I'm here about. I'm wanting to discuss the mindset and what happens behind the scenes. Now, I want to discuss 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the mega blockbusters. This one was not too much of a success, with Nicolas Cage in theaters. Season of the Witch, in which there's a medieval night situation and this conflict between Islam and the Crusades and desertion, and then there is a witch who is possessed. But the way they deal with it, with all the blood and the gore and the drama to distract your mind, you always end up somewhere in a Catholic conclave. There's always a monastery where there is secret information and hidden knowledge, which eventually, even if all the monks are slaughtered in the process, the hidden knowledge will be able to be used and exercise this demon power. The power lies always in the church, and it's always available to you through the church. You've probably noticed that every single Hollywood movie has a Catholic priest. You never see a Protestant one. National Treasure, already it tells you right there on the cover what their intention is with the all-seeing eye. And this one is so full of masonry. Nobody should watch this stuff, but I'm just telling you that this is how children and people are being indoctrinated into a way of thinking. When you come to the movie The Exodus, Gods and Kings, it is probably one of the most godless movies ever made. And I don't have to discuss it with you. You can even watch it on this very channel where there's a discussion about this movie and how the directors feel. They are enemies of God. They hate God. They call Moses the most arrogant person that ever lived when the Bible says he was the most humble person that ever lived. They don't believe in God. They distort God. They twist the word of God. They ridicule God in every possible way. So they cannot be from God. They must be from the other camp. Then this massive production, The Kingdom of Heaven, spectacular, epic, and adventure. The main message of the movie is a post-Enlightenment opposition to violence carried out in the name of religion. Now there's a very powerful message. My question is, who creates the violence in the name of religion so that you can finally end the violence in the name of religion? Is it a master strategist sitting somewhere behind the scenes, pulling the strings, making enemies appear as enemies when actually there are no enemies, being in the field beforehand, using chariots of others as your own? Interesting. Again, if you want to find the Jesuit connection, you have to search a bit. You have to dig a little bit, but it's always there. It's somewhere in the wood pile. You just have to search around. Said Father Leo Lefebvre, the theology professor of Jesuit-run Fordham University. He said, this is what the movie is about. The Times then tries to reassert the film's group hug, whatever status, with a quick quote from a cooperative priest who says exactly what they want to hear. The Reverend George Dennis, a Jesuit priest and a history professor at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, who was one of the 5 experts provided with the script for Kingdom of Heaven, said he was impressed with the nuance and accuracy. The Christians are always the bad guys. The others are always the good guys. This is a mindset without the backdrop of history that is being instilled in humanity. Historically, I found it pretty accurate. Well, if you have a distorted mind, I don't know whether you know, but you cannot find the history of the Reformation in any meaningful way in any modern document dealing with that subject. You have to dig for the old moldy ones. When you open them, they have this moldy smell and this damp, acrid feel. Then you know you've got gold in your hands. Because the Jesuits have rewritten everything. They own the press. They own the press, so you rewrite history, as we will see. Not so fast, George, etc. So they're arguing about it, but the fact of the matter is, from behind are who? Jesuits. Jesuits. The Count of Monte Cristo, probably one of the most brilliant allegorical movies, and the Count of Monte Cristo, who suffers greatly and eventually becomes mega rich, but he doesn't get the girl. Who is he? Well, he's none other than the Jesuit general himself. About the story of the Jesuits and the demise of the Jesuits and the resurrection of the Jesuits, immensely wealthy, that he can purchase the whole world, if you like. So these are stories that are implanted, and the hero is always, in the end, the evil triumphing over good, made to appear as good triumphing over evil. Brilliant strategy. Take any of the Indiana Jones movies, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and all of these issues. The language that is used is demeaning to God. Although it uses the themes of the Bible, eventually it leads you straight into hardcore occultism, Gnostic thinking. Now, if you've prepared the mind, you come up with movies like Left Behind, and they spent billions. They don't mind spending billions. How much do these productions cost? And already in the Middle Ages, they were criticized for the vast sums. They feel nothing for spending millions upon millions, if not billions of dollars on a production, if the ends justify the means. And the Left Behind series, of course, implanted the Jesuit theology of dispensationalism, which comes straight out of the Jesuit camp, with Cardinal Bellarmine adding his thinking patterns to those of Alcázar and Ribera that went before, to set the stage for getting rid of the mindset of the Protestant world that the papacy was Antichrist, and replaced it with this airy-fairy nonsense, which is then propagated across the world in mega productions. They don't care whether it's a box office success or a box office failure, as long as the message comes through. Lords of War. All of these are phenomenal. Now, I thought I'd take one where I've heard so many of our own people even saying, well, this is one should watch because it really shows us where we are. And I know that many have exposed it for what it is, and that's good, but let's just make sure again that we're not speculating here over issues that might not be so. Mel Gibson and the Passion of the Christ. This is probably the one movie that moved the evangelical world to tears like no other movie prior to it. And I want to just go through a few scenes, but let's just establish again the connection. Mel Gibson receiving his honorary doctorate at Loyola Jesuit Marymount University. He must have received his honorary doctorate for something good. You know what? This doesn't pay, because his life was a misery after he made this. But irrespective of what his future plans are, which I've heard about, the fact of the matter is this is a Jesuit production, and it has Jesuit theology. But before we go there, let's just have a look at the prophecy in Zechariah so we can understand the context. Zechariah 11, then I said to them, if it is agreeable to you, give me my wages, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. Who's it talking about? It's a prophecy about Jesus Christ. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter. That princely price they set on me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord for the potter. Then I cut in two my other staff, bonds, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. They rejected the Lord Jesus Christ. And the Lord said to me, next take for yourself the implements of a foolish shepherd. The good shepherd, they sold him out. The good shepherd, they set him aside. They crucified him. So if you want to set aside and reject the good shepherd, well then be satisfied with the foolish shepherd. Now let's look at the foolish shepherd. For indeed, I will raise up a shepherd in the land who will not care for those who are cut off. He won't care for them. Nor seek the young, nor heal those that are broken, nor feed those that stand still. This is not a good shepherd. This is an evil shepherd. But he will eat the flesh of the fat and tear their hooves in pieces. So he will be a destructive shepherd. He will destroy mankind. Woe to the worthless shepherd who leaves the flock. A sword shall be against his arm and against his right eye. His arm shall completely wither, and his right eye shall be totally blinded. Right. Those are the criteria in the prophecy of Zechariah. And these are the criteria which apply to the good shepherd or the bad shepherd? Bad shepherd. The evil one. Now remember, in the occult world, good becomes evil and evil becomes good. So now let's go to the movie. In most of the movie, Jesus appears with his right eye completely shut, smashed. There's the symbol of the eye. There's only one eye. If you take the Council of Foreign Relations, their Messiah, who is naked, and by the way, in this movie, Jesus appears out of the grave naked. I'm sure he didn't. He appeared with a robe of righteousness. He was not naked. This Messiah of theirs is naked and only shows the left eye. The right eye is never seen in their Messiah. So here, Jesus' arm is dislocated, so says this webpage, in order to make his hand reach the nail hole, meaning that his arm should be fully extended and straight at all times. However, in almost all shots of him on the cross, his body sags forward with his arms bent at almost 90-degree angle. So his arm is withered and his right eye is smashed. Now let's make sure again. Let's go to the occult world, Blavatsky. The devil is now called darkness by the church, whereas in the Bible, he's called the Son of God. The bright star of the early morning, Lucifer. There's a whole philosophy of dogmatic craft in the reason why the first archangel who sprang from the depth of chaos was called Lux, the luminous son of the morning. Or man, Vantarik dawn, he was transformed by the church into Lucifer or Satan because he is higher and older than Jehovah and had to be sacrificed to the new dogma. Now in the esoteric world, Satan is higher and older than the other brother, who is Jesus. And the war between the two of them is raging. And he, the older brother, was deprived of his position but will regain it. He will be the victor. So good becomes evil and evil becomes good. Of course, we know that he's a created being because the Bible tells us so. But not in the esoteric world. Or another quote here from Blavatsky. Esoterically, he's also the serpent or the dragon that tempted Eve. And the dragon is an old glyph for astral light, which is the wisdom of chaos. So Jehovah is the serpent. He's the bad one. God is evil. So evil becomes good, and good becomes evil. Now, let's continue. In the movie, while on the cross, Satan, with an effeminate image, walks by, and he has the birth of the other Messiah. I want you to look at this child, because you can see his hairy arms and his baldness and his demeanor, and we're going to just quickly play this. I want you to look at the smile on this evil face. As he looks at the cross. They cannot have, look at the hairs on his back. They cannot have created a more evil image than this. And it's virtually subliminal because nobody really notices it in the movie. And look at that evil smile. Now, good becomes evil and evil becomes good. So the evil is hanging where? On the cross. But the real evil is actually the good, because you have to turn everything around in the esoteric world. This is actually a symbol of the victory of Satan over Jesus Christ. This is what it means. Now, let's just make sure. Mel Gibson told Christianity Today, I've been actually amazed at the way, I would say, the evangelical audience has, hands down, responded to this film more than any other Christian group. What makes it so amazing, he says, that the film is so Marian. Gibson calls her the tremendous co-redemptrix and mediatrix. So the whole movie is about Mary. Mary is the one who consoles everyone. Mary is the great hero of this movie, not Jesus Christ. Now, another final little interesting little tidbit about this movie. The penitent thief on the cross was wearing around his neck the Catholic brown scapular. There. So if you look at the shot of him, he's wearing a scapular. Nowhere in the Bible do you read that he wears a scapular. Now, what is the scapular? The scapular is a structure that you wear around which guarantees you that Mary will let you bypass purgatory and take you straight to heaven. So it is a promise to Mary, not to God. So Jesus could not have given him the right to go to heaven one day. It's Mary that will decide who goes and who does not. But Mary, as we know, is an acronym for Lucifer, because she was immaculate without having to need the atonement. And then that Jesus said, it is accomplished, rather than it is finished. According to Rome, it was the Eucharist which was accomplished at the cross. Now, this word accomplished is rather interesting. The Eucharist, the sacrament of our salvation accomplished by Christ on the cross, is also a sacrifice of praise in thanksgiving for the work of creation, says the Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church. So it was accomplished, almost consummated. And it is, of course, the perpetual sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the constant treading underground of the Son of God, keeping him perpetual death, worshipped as a corpse. This movie is evil. And you can see the underlying evil in the subliminals. It is Gnosticism at its worst, dished up and sold to Christians as the representation of the suffering of the Son of God. It is an evil movie. John 19 verse 30 says, Jesus therefore, when he had taken vinegar, said, it is